Thank you, Joel. And I'd like to thank George for filling in for the mic malfunction. The title of my talk today is Keeping the Promise. And as I was preparing for the ceremony, the ritual, the installation that we were doing, and looking back at the years that I have been practicing the study of the science of mind, and it's some 25 years now that I have been living this, practicing this, learning this, trying to get to a point to where I might even understand it. And only coming to the realization that the more I learn and know and understand, how little it is that I really know and understand. For there is so much in this idea of the infinite intelligence that any one individual human mind cannot contain the enormous amount that must be in this thing called divine intelligence. But that each of us is a unique aspect of that one divine source, that one divine intelligence, and that we can tap into it. As Robert said in a quote from our founder, Ernest Holmes, that there is a power in the universe, a power for good, and that we can use it. If we can just but learn to understand that it's there, and how it is that it works, and in what ways might we use it. And those of us who have been practicing this, whether we are licensed or not, we're bringing forth manifestations and demonstrations every day. For if you are a student of the science of mind, you know that there is a power available to you. You might not yet have grasped a full meaning of it, but you know it's there. You know that you're co-creating your life. You know that you're manifesting and demonstrating things and objects and people and places in your life, and you're trying to figure out how to do that more often and more effectively and in more ways. So we're all doing that. The licensing process is just a step along the way that just acknowledges that someone has completed a certain number of activities or classes or courses, and they've moved through some exams and some panels, and they've stepped forth in agreement that they're going to abide by these, and so they received their license. Virginia talked about the idea that once a practitioner received their license and they enter into ministerial school, and this is not true across the board, but for many of us, you had the option when you became a licensed minister to not have to renew your practitioner license because you were a practitioner in essence. Every minister is a practitioner. In essence, some of them have just decided to pay the money and do the forms and renew the license on a regular basis. For those of us who have chosen to continue to do that, at least in my own experience, it was because I recognized something so powerful about holding that license as a practitioner. It represented the work that I had done inside, within my own mind, within my own life, in order to bring my experience into a greater place of realization. So when I entered into ministerial school, I had made myself the promise keeping the promise, that I was going to maintain my practitioner license first and foremost. That would be the one that I would hold, that I would always be a licensed practitioner. And so some 20 years now, it has been that value for me to know that I moved through all the processes to do that, and that I continue to do the work, and that first and foremost, I identified myself as being a licensed practitioner. And then I became a minister. And a minister is just another role that does practitioner work, but it has the opportunity to do other things like lead a center. Officially, you get to do weddings and create ceremonies and a number of other things. But I always felt I was a practitioner. So I hope, get the essence of what that means in my heart, to be acknowledged by someone like Virginia, who is an emeritus and has held that honor for some time now. This has been her life. This has been her essence. This has been her presence. And for her to honor me in doing whatever it required in order to get the higher-ups in Golden, Colorado to go along with that, because they know me, and they don't always necessarily agree with me. So, but that's okay, because that's the science of mind. I had the thought that I could have titled my talk today, "The Science of Mind." Because when I looked at this idea about keeping the promise, what was the promise? Well, I promised that I was going to keep my practitioner license. And along with that, there's several other promises. You heard me ask the practitioners today if they promise to keep the confidence of anybody that comes to them for prayer, to abide by the teachings of Science of Mind, to practice this, what we hold as the Center for Spiritual Living, and to hold that as your primary practice. These are all promises that we have kept. But if we want to keep a promise, because you know this, Robert spoke to this, we've all been there, we've all made lots of promises, only to find ourselves a couple days later, maybe even an hour later, maybe just in a few moments, breaking that promise. Going back into some behavior, going back into some condition, going back into some thought that goes against what we promised. For when we promise something, we have to understand clearly, what is it that we are promising? For the words come so easily. When you make that promise in the moment, somebody says, "Would you do this?" And you say, "Oh, I will, I will, I will." And then you turn around and say, "How dare they ask me that?" Or something to that effect. And how easily we break our promise, because the words come so just right off of our lips, because we haven't engaged our brain yet. So we have to bring this into a centeredness if you're going to make a promise. And I gave up doing New Year's resolutions a long time ago. I promised I would never make another one. Because they're so easy to break. But when I find something that I can hold deep within, that really has value to me, that really speaks to my inner soul, that says to me, this is the way I want to live my life every day, every moment, knowing that I may not do this perfectly, but I'm going to make the promise to do the best that I can do with this experience and this expression that I call Michael, in the best way that I know how.